Can you hear us? We'll keep trying. I just want the interpreters to be able to hear. They can hear us. Excellent. I'm very proud to introduce the director of the film, Matt Ogens. Matt.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
And we can hear you. That's great. And now I could see you. Folks at home, if you're doing this virtually, you can put questions in the chat. Folks here will give you an opportunity to ask some questions too. I'm really excited. First of all, congratulations on all the success with this film and the nomination, of course.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's a beautiful film. There's so much there. It really, like, you could have done just one little part of this and it would have been good enough. But I felt like, you had so many other layers that really made this an extremely rich film. Tell us a little bit about how this all started and how.
Yeah. So I grew up in Maryland, DC and Maryland, about 30 minutes away from Maryland School for the Deaf. A lot of connections. So my aunt is an ASL interpreter in Maryland, DC area, and actually interpreted at the school for about 6 years. Like I said, I grew up nearby, and I think the biggest connection is my best friend since I was about 7 years old is deaf. To this day, I was just texting with him. And so it actually took me about, 12 years to get this made, of stops and starts and different partners and almosts and maybes. And so it was a pretty long journey. And because I'd go home, I live in Los Angeles now, to visit my family a couple times a year, I'd always stop at the school, show my face, until I kind of was invited and trusted and asked back, and I think more recently I realized on a personal level, making the film perhaps was a way to also understand my best friend and connect with him even more.
You come from a background, from what I've learned about you is you've made a lot of documentaries relating to sports.
Half and half. Yeah.
One of your angles.
Yeah.
I have to say, this is actually just on the cinematic level. It looks so beautiful. Does football just shoot so nicely because of those big floodlights, or you really have to light it up there? Because it really, there's those shots with the purple sky.
I have to give it to our cinematographer, Billy Pena. I don't know, if you look at my work, I always think there's a lot of different kinds of documentaries, and I don't think that a documentary necessarily is an excuse for poor craftsmanship. It doesn't have to be a certain way or conventional. I don't think there are rules or one way to make it. And so I always try to challenge myself to, do something different visually, but not gimmicky, but because of this film, it's not an observational film from my point of view. I'm just a conduit or a liaison to help Amari and Jalen and Lyra and the kids and the football team and the school tell their story. And in my research and talking to them, I spend a lot of time with Amari and everyone, like, hey, what kind of music do you listen to? What movies do you watch? What art do you like? How do you see the world? And we sort of created this colorscape of how they saw it, and we kind of built that around their authentic lives, if that makes sense. I'll give you a little anecdote. There's the football practice scene. It's sort of at magic hour going into night. They practice at 3 p.m. So we go to the coach, it's better for lighting if you do it at 6. Have the same practice. We're not going to tell you how to coach, but it's going to look great. And so just knowing, cinematographers paint with light, and the DP is my best friend on a project. I think visually for a doc, more narratively, and then the authenticity comes from what happens in the frame.
So now we know all the movie magic secrets. Got it. Always practice, at the right times where the lighting is perfect. Who cares if you could see the ball or not, as long as it looks good on camera.
No, it depends. Look, it depends on the scene. Authenticity and emotion are first. So let's say there's that moment with Amari and his father at church or walking down the street. You're not looking for the best shot. You want to capture that emotion in a verite scene in a real moment. It's when you have time to sort of craft the light is always nice. You can't always do that.
So here's one element that I love about the film that relates to this very much is it's very natural. You're not giving us a one-on-one look. This is how a deaf football team acts. This is how it works. These are the rules of football when you're playing with a deaf team. We've actually, as part of Real Abilities, we've actually shown other movies relating to football teams made up of deaf teenagers, actually. And I learned a little bit. I know that the drum is how they start they feel the vibration, and that's how they know that a play is starting. That's how you know that they've said hike. You kind of let us all, you bring us right into the middle of it and just let it flow. And I think that's one of the things that makes this work. Was that part of your intention when you started?
It was my intention 12 years ago. I always knew I wanted it to be visual, and I always knew that I wanted sound to play a character. And I thought about the film more narratively. And, and I don't know if this is what you're saying, but rather than trying to be the comprehensive film about being deaf, trying to tell everything and making it about that, this is just a group of teenagers. It's their coming of age story who are also happen to be deaf. If that makes sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in Real Abilities, we look for the films that are not about the disability, but rather just happen to include disability, and that's a part of it.
Yeah, I really tried to do that, is like, just tell a story. And like, I'll use an analogy, the football team. They're not a great football team for being deaf. They're a great football team, and they also happen to be deaf. And there's a big difference.
Exactly. Within those levels of the story that you have there, so then you have, how did you decide to go with Amari, and of course then you have his story. I mean, you could have just told a football story, about a team they lost their first game and coming back. But then we get to know this community a little bit, circled around Amari, and then you have that other level, his relationship with his father, which is another beautiful part of the story. And then, of course, throw Teddy into that. How did you choose all these pieces, and how did you know you want them to all be in the film?
I didn't even think about it till recently, but I always knew, because we're talking about coming of age, right? So I knew we wanted to have a senior, because that's a pivotal moment for anyone, hearing or deaf, graduating and going out in the world. It can be scary. And so, but what that meant is, over those 12 years, I had to recast every single year, because that person would have graduated. And I'm so glad it took that long to make the film, because I wouldn't have met Amari and Jalen and Teddy, who I feel like I met through his family. Lyra, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes, it sounds sappy and cliche, things happen for a reason, but waiting this long, I think, told the most powerful story. So I met them. It would have been their junior year when I went back to sort of, recast like I do every year, if you want to call it that. And I didn't know about Teddy, and I didn't know that Amari and Jalen were, a jock and a gay male cheerleader were tight. I started just on my own interviewing them each, just not filming yet, like just, talking, and they revealed that and wanted to talk about it. And so that friendship between Amari and Jalen through a tragedy of Teddy, I thought was beautiful. Like you said, Amari's relationship and in the past, lack thereof, with his father, to me, that spoke to a lot of the conflict in Amari's life, and perhaps for other deaf kids as well. And also for me, Amari was born hearing. He got meningitis at about 2-3 years old. Literally, that's how my best friend got it, at the exact same age. So there's all these weird, maybe they're not coincidences. I'm starting to think there aren't any.
But then this film was picked up by, when did Netflix come in, get involved with the film?
At the beginning. So over the course of the 10 to 12 years, you know, I got a lot of doors shut. And when I met Amari and had that story, it just felt like all the stars are aligned. And I partnered with Peter Berg's company. Peter created, directed Friday Night Lights, the movie and the series, and many other great films. And it felt very, Friday Night Lights is not just a football story, it's a human story, and football is a metaphor. This is not a sports film. It's a coming of age film. We talk about relationships and family and tragedy. And in high school, sports is one of the things that some kids do, but it also happens to be a great metaphor for ups and downs and challenges and obstacles. I'm rambling. Where was I going, Isaac?
Netflix, how they got involved?
Oh, so when I got that, we went and me and Peter Berg's company, we went and pitched to Netflix. So it's a Netflix original. They came aboard and financed it and really made the film with me. And it was an amazing experience. How supportive they were creatively, but also their sensitivity towards accessibility, even in post with how it's going to be presented and where. I got lucky enough that, not his job, but the key person in editing and post-production at Netflix is a coda. So I had a little,
deaf adults.
What's that?
A child of deaf adults, for those.
Yeah. And that was
for those who are living under a rock. Yes. That
was so helpful to have that insider, and just talking about things. Look, Niall DeMarco is executive producer on this. Niall, he's deaf. What you don't know in the film is he went to Maryland School for the Deaf. He is from Frederick, grew up in the same area as me. His brother, Neil, is in the film. He's one of the assistant football coaches. He's actually now the head coach. But Niall isn't just a name. He came on board, and like little things, this film is not just for a hearing audience. It is in terms of we want a hearing audience to understand, but I'd say this film is as much for, and more so for, a deaf audience. And I needed to get that right and have, as much as I've been in that world through my friend, I'm not deaf. And I wanted to have a partner that, the kids in the film, it's really their story. They taught me, but how the subtitles came up, we customize that. It's not like a standard foreign film where it's plug and play. How they come up, the timing of them with the signing, the flow of them. We worked on that a lot with a lot of interpreters who are often unknown heroes in the deaf community. And we wanted to just try to get it right. We did the best we could to try to get it right. And so, he challenged me and pushed me. He's like, no, push harder. You don't have to be so sensitive there. Or like I said, the flow of the subtitles, and it made a difference.
You feel it in the film that you really paid attention to those details, and I think did a fantastic job. I'm going to ask one last question, then we'll take some questions from the audience. I wanted to know about where did all this go? Did all the success go to their heads? Where are they now? Give us a little update on the people that we saw.
Yeah, no, it didn't. I don't even know if they fully get it. They're so excited. I text with them, every other day. Amari's coming out this weekend for an event we're having. They've done some interviews. There's going to be more. They love it and kind of can't believe it. That's what makes me happiest, is seeing them happy. If I did right by them and the school, I'm grateful for the Oscar nomination. But to me, if that happens, even the nomination, for me, it's about elevating the deaf community and being inclusive. And that if that helps do that, then I'm happy. Yeah, it didn't go to their heads at all. They're great.
Thank you. I'm going to take some questions from the audience. I do have a question also virtually too, that I could start with while the microphone goes up to somebody who had their hand up. This is from Hannah Stern. Can you speak about the choice to include sound in the places where you did?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. We wanted to make sound, which is a sense, a character in the film, and really show the spectrum of sound from silence to fully saturated. You know, there's the superintendent of Maryland School for the Deaf, who just retired after over 30 years, Mr. Tucker, told me earlier on, like, let's not use the word silent. It's not silent. You go into those locker rooms, those kids are certainly not silent. And obviously there are different levels of hearing. And so for that, I wanted to make a hearing audience understand that it's not just a silent world. I wanted to try, you know, a hearing person is never going to know what it's like to be deaf. Even if you cover your ears, you know, you can take them off, right? And so, but I wanted to give them some type of a feeling when they're watching it. And even it's subconscious, mirroring the emotions in the film. You know, seeing the scene with Amari, with his family, and they're talking, and you know, he's not included in that, which is why he goes up to his room. And there's times I wanted to show what it might sound like from his point of view, not from my point of view, because I didn't want it, like I said, yes, I directed this, but I like to think this is their film and it's their journey. And I sort of put together this team of people to help them tell the story they all wanted to tell of themselves, if that makes sense. You know, when I talked to Amari and Jalen, they talked about in the film is feeling the vibrations, right? So I even connected them with our sound design team and composers who are amazing. I'm lucky I had them. They even collaborated with the kids. Like, so you feel a lot of bassy sounds and distortions that you turn up the volume, you might feel that, you know, certainly a hearing person will. So I'm just trying to sort of do the best we can. So even for the audience, that it's not an observational film either, that it's an audio visual immersive experience, and that they're on this journey with these kids. That's what we attempted to do.
By the way, I have to say that I had watched it at home on my computer, and now I watched it here in the theater, and that surround sound experience definitely adds to it, and exactly what you were saying.
Hey, Mike, look,
used to the bass.
My sound design team worked on movies like X-Men. I was lucky. Yeah, like big, yeah, bigger than me.
I felt it. We have a question up on top.
Before I ask my question, I want to express our gratitude for you making this film. It's truly an extraordinary film. Since you're a sports expert, in reference to the title, Audibles, the single greatest evolution in the last decade in terms of football strategy is the increase in use of audibles at the line of scrimmage. That means after the team sets up, they change the play after they're set up at the line of scrimmage. How do deaf teams adjust to that?
I can only speak to what I learned from Coach Ryan and the players, is that they seem to be sort of laser focused with their other senses, you know, almost like a meditation on that field where they're really present. And so certainly, like we talked about the drum, but they're feeling stuff, but they're seeing stuff, and I think are much more focused to every little move, and they know when to look out. But certainly, no pun intended, it's not a level playing field when they're playing a hearing team. You know, it's not a level playing field. And so they have to hack the system, if you will. And they have secret codes, and they know when to look at each other. And a lot of it's just feeling, right? Intuition and gut. Seems to work for them. They went 9-1 that season.
Question down here.
Hi, I love the film. I
Thank you.
wonder about your decision not to talk about what any of them is going to do after they graduate.
I wouldn't say that's a great question. You know what? It's more that we finished the film before they graduated. That's just when it ended. But I can tell you where they are now.
Please do.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with Amari. Amari is in Minnesota in college there, and his winter sport was wrestling in high school. So he's been pursuing deaf wrestling. I'm not talking about WWE style wrestling. I'm talking about like Olympic style wrestling. Lyra is at Gallaudet. Jalen, I'm saving the best for last, is Jazzy. Jalen identifies as female and is amazing and confident and is jazzy. That's where they are now.
Anybody? Who else? Are they there? Or is Amari and I'm forgetting?
Oh, sorry, and Jazzy's at Gallaudet as well.
And is are they still together as a couple?
They're not. But they're amicable and they've been doing interviews together. Young love.
Folks, I want to thank you so much. I want to really thank you for this fantastic film, Matt. I wish you all the luck, of course,
Thank
in
you.
the upcoming weeks. And we hope to see you again and have another one of your future films. What is next for you?
Two things. One, before we got on, I was talking to these two amazing interpreters and we talked about, shouldn't there be a film about interpreters? That would be amazing. I haven't seen that point of view before. I am in the middle of production on a new documentary. It's a feature documentary. I'm trying to think how much I can say. It takes place in Nigeria and England, and it's about a dancer.
I love it already. Sounds
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much for this beautiful film. Folks, thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The Oscars are at the end of March, but of course, Real Abilities is April 7th till the 13th, where you could see many more films like this one. Have a good night, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you all. Appreciate everyone for coming out.